Hey everybody, it's your local idiot again. I had a tiny little thought. I thought I'd share it with you. Sorry about that. Um, just as quick an update as it's possible for me to make, the way I am and all. Day three, it's now and I'm off today. Since I work part time, I get random days off. So today's Thursday, and I'm off today. Actually, I'm really stoked about that though because my wife had to go to work. Anyway, sorry about that, hon. But I am surrounded by my children, my kids. You ever noticed how cats are way better kids than real kids are? One, they don't like get turn 13 and start to say they hate your guts and stuff like that, and they never ask for money. I mean, they do a lot of bad stuff. I mean, they're terrible roommates at times, especially in the middle of the night. But they never ask for money. They never get arrested. I don't get phone calls like some of my friends from the cops or from their kids in jail saying them to come and get them. My cat, I know where they're at all the time, so that's always cool. But anyway, day three of no food. It's like 1 o'clock, so noon was the mark of 3 solid days. It doesn't seem to be doing anything to me other than once in a while making me a little nutty. So it's good. What I do is whenever I start to feel a little bit hungry, it's more mental really than anything else. I start picturing, I guess, cheeseburgers and pizza. I don't know, but I a long time ago, a friend of mine sent me. We were doing the Atkins thing, and they were successful at it. And I, of course, I've never been successful with the Atkins thing, but I was one time, as far as a diet goes, I was successful with Weight Watchers, where you actually went to the meeting and stuff. I've never made Weight Watchers work online, even though it's the exact same principle. But something about showing up and weighing in, for whatever reason, it helped me, conquer myself. But it's all mental. So when I get, so this friend of mine sent me pink, so Himalayan pink salt. And I don't know if that's some kind of like a psychological thing or whatever like that. But when you start to feel kind of hungry or a little bit woozy or weak or whatever, you take a little pinch of that, put it on your tongue. And it's got no caloric value, but it helps with the loss of electrolytes and stuff like that. Because regardless whether you like it or not, you're going to pee those out. And so you need to replace it with something because your body runs on electricity. Every aspect of your body runs on electricity. And without sodium, there's none of that. And you definitely need to take vitamins because speaking of your body's nervous system, the way the nerves work is synaptic fluid. In between each and every single nerve cell, there's a tiny little gap. And the only way those gaps get filled and then conduct electricity is by synaptic fluid being created like in an instant. I mean, like in a fraction of a second. And it has to happen a zillion times for every nerve to be able to transmit, electrical impulse, right? And so synaptic fluid is made up of a bunch of stuff like thiamine and niacin are really, really important for that. So, I mean, you really need to take a daily kind of like an all-in-one type of vitamin. And I do, along with, some other basic stuff like vitamin C and magnesium and vitamin D3. Those are some really important basic everyday things you need to do, whether you're fasting or not. Really. And I've found that, because food isn't, people talk about, oh, you don't need vitamins if you eat a balanced diet, but that's not true. At one time, if you ate the right foods, you would get all the vitamins and minerals you needed. But because of modern farming techniques, the vitamins and mineral content in vegetables and fruit and stuff has changed greatly. Like, for instance, an apple or something like that. The old saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. It's not true. There was there's been several studies about it and stuff by scientists, and they found that like certain aspects of like an apple are 5 times less prevalent as they were 100 years ago. So, don't assume that because you're getting your carrots and broccoli that you're eating well. What that basically means is that you're able to get full without having a ton of carbs or fats that are, cholesterol that are bad for your system, kind of a thing. It's not really that you're getting what you're supposed to have. You're getting other things like fiber, from them and things, which is important. But I've since I've always either been. There was a time when I used to spend like 5 hours a day in the gym. I know you can't tell it now, but I had a friend that was addicted to that stuff, and he was known as a friend of mine named Mike Stam on the West Coast, but he was known as Big Mike. Anywhere I ever went with him, it seemed like random strangers, if they knew him, they knew him as Big Mike. And this is one of those people that lived in the gym and pretty much every gym in 2 or 3 different towns that I ever went to with him. He could just walk in any gym and work out for free, and nobody would ever say a thing. In fact, if they said anything, they'd say, "Hey, Big Mike, how's it going?" And it was because he was really great for business. Just having him there, he was a giant human being, and we were housemates for a while, and. It was funny. The way I met him was we worked together at a club where that we were security, and there was like eight bouncers there, and Mike was the head bouncer, and I came in. I mean, I had been just as experienced as Mike, but I had been working elsewhere, and I came in and started working there, and we became friends. Basically, I think because we were both very experienced, and we were also both in a club like that where things could get real hairy real quick. We were the two people that we knew for sure had each other's backs. It was always fun to have a new bouncer who would you put them to the test and they were suddenly gone. Like because they were saving themselves like any smart person would do. But Mike and I each other had our backs. But Mike would walk around our house occasionally. And he was bald. So he's 6'3" and a giant human being. But not big time cut, right? Giant arms, giant chest, giant legs. I mean, this guy never skipped a leg day or any aspect of his body day ever. And so he was shaved bald, his head. He had no Nordic fella, had no body hair that anybody could see. And so he'd walk around our house in tighty-whitey underwear once in a while. And it was funny. He looked like a 6'3" baby because he wasn't hella cut, right? So, because you wouldn't want to see a baby looking like that, or it would be freaky, I guess. So, but Mike had all these features that you look at a baby, a little pudgy baby, and stuff. Except Mike was a 6'3" version of a baby. It was hilarious to see. And yeah. So, but Mike and I started hanging out, and he was at the gym all the time, and so I started to go to the gym. One time we parked at a gym, and we were walking in, and we were walking by a Volkswagen in the parking lot, Volkswagen Bug, and at the back, which if you know anything about Volkswagens, that's where the motor is, and he just bent down casually, not even thinking about it, casually, had his gym bag on the other arm, and grabbed the bumper and just stood up and picked that car up an inch off the ground. The back wheels were an inch off the ground, and waited until I saw, and then he put it back down, and then we just started walking into the gym again. And I was like, what would it be like to be that human being? I mean, that same day as we got into the gym, and it was a big gym. It was like a 24-hour fitness in Oregon, near Eugene, Oregon. And when I say it was a big gym, it was like an acre, at least, of land, but full of equipment, And nobody was in the section that we were heading toward, but there was this big crowd over by this other section where like what the heck's going on over there? So we just, nobody was even in there to check us in. So we walked over there, and a big group of young guys, real young guys. And I was, I think I was in my 30s at that time, late 30s. But they were having a bench press contest. And we just walked up to the crowd and sort of shuffled in a little bit, and so we could see what was happening. And some people noticed us, and right when basically the people noticed us, Mike said, "Hey, could I try?" And then 2 or 3 guys that looked like that they felt like that they were in line to win this contest or whatever just went, because they knew. And even though somebody else was about to be up, because it was a little bit of a line, tiny line there, they let Mike go in front because they knew there was no point. And so Mike went in front, and he looked at what they had on there, and he said, "Hey, put 2 more, whatever the weight was, on each side, please." And they did, and he just laid down and pushed it up 3 times, pretty effortlessly, and that was it. The contest was finished, and I'm sure that the people at the gym that day were kind of like, "Oh man, this kind of sucks." But again, the vast majority of the crowd didn't. They maybe saw Mike before working out, but they didn't know him, and so they were just impressed this human being could do what they just did. And Mike's like, "What's the prize?" And they were listing all kinds of swag that the gym sold, and he looked over at me. He says, "Yeah, need any of that stuff?" And I said, "Sure, I'll take a sweat towel." And so he got all these things, and he had them write down on his account or whatever about these recovery drinks and all this kind of crap. And it was just nothing to him. Then we started and it was just nothing to him. But some guys there, it really disappointed them. They almost looked like they were going to cry. And then we just started our workout. And so, yeah, at one time I lived in the gym because of Mike, and I was a lot bigger, and I spent about $500 a month on supplements, And now, of course, at this moment, I'm spending 0 on supplements because I'm not eating. But when I start again, I've got my my membership and stuff like that. But when I start again, I'm going to be eating. My diet will consist of my normal meals will be kind of typical, a lot of vegetables and a lot of chicken breasts, and the whole point of the chicken breast is it's low fat. And I actually literally steam them. So they're not fancy. They've got spices on them, but there's no fried, nothing like that ever. But they're full of amino acids. There are lots and lots of protein, and they're full of amino acids too. So chicken is always good for something that you're going to work out with. But I take whey protein before I go into the gym, and my amino acids. So it's like a scoop of each, into a container of water, and then I shake it up. It's like a little shaker that you mix your stuff with and drink it down. Then I go to the gym and I hit it for about 2 hours. And when I get done, I take another scoop of the amino acid. And if I'm feeling hungry or something like that at the time, and it depends on how hard I hit it, sometimes like during a leg day specifically, because they're like a really big muscle group, or a back day, then I'll take another scoop of the whey protein. And basically, there's 3 building blocks to building muscle, to making muscle. And that is protein. You want as pure protein as you can get, so that you're not getting too much of the bad stuff, cholesterol, things like that. The other thing is amino acids, branched chain amino acids, BCAAs. The protein doesn't do anything unless you have amino acids in your system. Now, you eat protein like the chicken breast, right? You can eat protein, but you can't eat enough to really build muscle. So if you're interested in building muscle, and when I say muscle, I don't mean it's not fake, it's not inflatable, it's strength, real strength. Like Mike, Mike's one of those people that could bend down and pick up the back end, the heavy end of a Volkswagen Bug without effort, and without obvious effort anyway. And there was a time when I had enough strength where I worked at a club, and one time I was dealing with a group of people along with, I mean, it was a riot basically outside. It was a college club, so we had the local college football team, which actually was really under control. But when I first started working there, we had a bunch of drug problems in the club, and it was the biggest club in the area, and it was University of Oregon town and all that. So it was a pretty crowded place. I mean, even though I think the fire marshal had us at like we could have 300 or 400 people in there at once, we would always on the weekend Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we'd have like 3,000 people in there at once. And so believe me, it was standing room only and all this kind of stuff. And when a riot broke out, we had eight security people because that's what it took. Period. And one time I was out in a parking lot dealing with in kind of a riot, and I had about 3 people around me that I really needed to pay attention to because otherwise that was it for me, kind of a thing. And one of the guys in front of me, I don't know how I thought of this, but I grabbed him literally by the belly. I mean, his something he'd been moving while he was trying to fight me and everybody else, and his shirt came up a little bit over his fat stomach, and right just below his belly button was that little the muffin top thing kind of thing, that people get, and I just grabbed that with 2 hands and threw him. Picked him up basically in a. This is all in like a 1-second movement. Grabbed that and threw him that way, which happened to be over the hood of a car, and then turned around to deal with the other most prevalent threat. But I got to thinking about that later, like, you have to. Not everybody can do that kind of stuff. Literally grab somebody and throw them, because Mike and I and the other security people, we trained constantly in different techniques and stuff where that you'd basically use leverage and some scientific principles of leverage and things like that about how to throw somebody. And really, you're not using the muscle as much, you're using your skeleton more. But in this particular case, that was muscle. And I thought, I was thinking about that later. I could never even remotely approach to do that now. Not even close. I have lost so much strength over the last, 5 or 6 years. Over the last 5 or 6 years, I've lost probably 20 pounds of fat because I gained a ton of weight after I stopped training. But I also probably lost a good 30 pounds of muscle, solid muscle. And with that muscle goes away your strength. And so I'm not anywhere near as strong as I used to be. I took it for granted so bad. Just the simplest things, like, you don't do it very often, but when you're working outside or carrying heavy things, you don't even think about it. But now it's like, I go to like Home Depot to buy stuff to work on my house or a project vehicle that I have that I play with. And I'm trying to carry plywood or trying to carry something heavy like a pressure washer or whatever, loading up back in my pickup. I used to be able to do that kind of stuff effortlessly. Now I'm almost to the point where I have to call somebody over to help me out, which I feel like a really old man, but it's not that. At one time I was built like a bulldozer, which is funny because for a little while, my friend Mike, was a professional wrestler. In Portland, Oregon. What he did mostly was train other wrestlers how to do certain techniques, like arm bars and wrist locks and ankle locks and stuff like this. That way they knew they looked like they knew what they were doing. Mike really did. He was a very experienced jiu-jitsu person. He even trained with the Gracies in Brazil. And so, I mean, Mike actually fought around the world. He back before UFC came about, which my friend Mike and I were working with a couple of guys out of LA to try to get something like the Octagon going. Nobody had ever heard of this before. It was something that in the mid 90s that he and I were working on with a couple of people in LA, and we were really kind of developing this thing. And it was back then, it was called Tough Man Contests. When Mike competed around the world, one of the ones he did was in Japan, and we used to have a bunch of pictures of him, dealing with all these people from all over the world, but Japan was the thing, and in mixed martial arts, which back then there was no term mixed martial arts. Everybody talks about MMA or whatever. It didn't exist. The term didn't exist back then. We basically, and a few people from LA, like Paul Vunak, which is one of the guys we were working with, sort of invented that term. And those guys were way crazier than Mike and I. Mike and I, we dealt with a lot of stuff. And we had a business where we did a lot of bodyguarding and stuff like that. We were in the state of Oregon. So, there wasn't a ton of that kind of work. Mostly sports figures and stuff. And one time I bodyguarded Sonny Barger during some kind of trial thing. And I also bodyguarded a Teamster negotiator during a Teamster whatever, where they're arguing about contracts and stuff. And I bodyguarded Coach Rich Brooks for the University of Oregon during a couple of bowl games. But basically, they just needed somebody that could be there and, keep them safe in case something was going on. I mean, Rich Brooks was getting death threats. Sonny Barger is one of the most deadly human beings in American history, almost. He was the former leader of the Hells Angels, and in his lifetime, he had murdered many, many, many people. Down in California, they at some point when they left a particular ranch that they occupied, they found an old well that was full of dead bodies. And so anyway, at this thing, the only one that ever made me actually nervous was guarding Sonny Barger, and when I was guarding him, I was literally always armed with a shotgun. I had a Benelli shotgun. I can't remember the number of it because I have no memory whatsoever. But anyway, I had a big leather coat. It was almost a trench coat practically, but it wasn't. It kind of went down below my waist, and I had that on a sling on my arm underneath, and it looked like I had my hand in my pocket, but it wasn't. There was a hole all the way through the lining or whatever for where the pocket was, and my hand was on that shotgun, and I was always ready because I just assumed somebody was going to come in literally with an MP5 or something like that, a hit squad or who knows what. And so that was the only one that I ever thought I was earning my money on or that I would earn my money on. But yeah, so the idea of the supplements that you would take and stuff to bulk up and things like that. It's really, really simple. You need three things total: two supplements and one activity, which is you need as pure protein as you can get. Then you need branch chain amino acids in whatever form. I have both capsules and scoops. Scoops is way more efficient. Creatine, basically. And then work. You need the protein, and you need the need the protein, and you need the amino acids to give the body what it needs to build muscle, and then you need the work to damage your muscle. You need to work out like insane until you have muscle failure. When at that point your body is saying, hey, and this goes back to the caveman days, it says, hey, it must be springtime. We need to do extra stuff like chase animals down and fight predators and all this kind of stuff to get us fed. And apparently it's dangerous out there. So let's build more muscle right now. And so that's how when you work out like crazy, that's how you're tricking your body into thinking it's a dangerous period of time of the year. And so you work like crazy to damage your muscle. And then the next day, within the next 24 hours or so, your body is rebuilding that muscle, but bigger, to match the time of the year. So you have an arm day where you work like crazy on your chest and your arms, both biceps and triceps and stuff like that. And then the next day you have a leg day. And the reason is you're not touching your arms. You're not working your arms at all the next day. The next day it's just repair mode for your body to do that. And then after leg day, you do the exact same thing. Every aspect from the lower back down, where that you're, you've worked your butt, you've worked your thighs, you've worked your calves, you've worked your reverse sit-ups, like where you're on the machine and you're it's like you're looking at the floor and then you keep on bringing yourself up. And the whole point of that is, and that's actually become way more important as I get older, is I've found that when I stopped doing that abruptly one time for a 2-year period, and first time in my entire life I developed back problems. And it was simply because I let the muscles, go away. And suddenly my back is having to carry the rest of my frame, and it says, oh shit, this is not easy. And I developed back problems until I started bringing that muscle back. And then that literally fixed it. And that's what physical therapists do. When you're having, pain in places, like, they very often just have you exercise certain muscles until those muscles basically take the pressure off those painful places. So yeah. So I'm doing my fasting, and with the goal of resetting my type 2 diabetes, which I've read about that it's possible, not probable, possible. And I'm making the transition from summer to winter physically, so that I can, this winter, as I start to go back to the gym, I don't really usually hit the gym in the summertime, but in the wintertime I do. And this winter, when I go back, I'm going to really start hitting it and build some muscle again, because I've missed it. I don't think it misses me, but I've missed it a lot. So, okay, hey, on my day off, day 3 officially, and I have not yet descended into madness. I don't know. I'm really concerned, because the longer it waits, the worse the madness will probably be. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it won't be. But hey, this has been your local idiot on a Thursday. It's like 1:30, and this is Gracie, and this is Ginger Billy. Hey, buddy. Hey, Ginger Billy. Ginger Billy. I like Ginger Billy the comedian, and so I named this kid Ginger Billy. Okay. See you later.